Today, we're about to discuss a deeply upsetting event from the late 1990s.
You just slam Matthew Eapon.
No.
How's this, a baby stand breathing? I think he choked on his vomit.
Okay. Sorry, can you turn him off?
How?
The death of an infant named Matthew Eapon. Please be aware that this topic might be distressing for some listeners. Matthew was born on May 24, 1996 in Newton, Massachusetts to Debbie and Sunil Eapen. He had an older brother called Brendan. His parents chose his name because it means gift from God, which reflected how they felt about him. Both Debbie and Sunil were successful medical professionals, an eye doctor and an anesthesiologist, respectively. Their demanding careers led them to hire a living nanny to care for their children. They employed 18-year-old Louise Woodward for this role. So let's talk about Louise Woodward a little bit. She came to America in 1996, seeking adventure and a change from her quiet hometown. Louise had just finished high school and wanted to experience life in the U.S. before starting college. She learned that joining an au pair agency could provide free accommodation with a host family in exchange for childcare services. This arrangement appealed to Louise, who had previous babysitting experience and was generally regarded as kind and trustworthy. Initially, Louise worked for a different family in America. While things started well, issues arose due to her fondness for staying out late. She often missed her curfew, exploring the nightlife, theaters, and social scene that were new to her. This led to mornings where she was tired while watching the children. Following the issues with her first host family, Louise sought a new placement closer to the city. This led her to the Eapen family, who initially liked her and welcomed her into their home to care for baby Matthew and his older brother Brendan. However, within weeks, similar problems emerged. Louise continued to miss curfews and struggled to wake up on time to watch the children. By January 1997, the Eapens were frustrated and gave Louise an ultimatum. If she was late again, she would be fired, which would mean leaving America. Louise knew she had to improve her behavior to keep her position and stay in the country, but a devastating event was about to unfold. On February 4, 1997, while Debbie and Sunil were at work, Louise was looking after both children. At around 3:45 p.m., she made a frantic 911 call, reporting that baby Matthew was unconscious and barely breathing.
How's this, a baby stand breathing? I think he choked on his vomit.
Okay. Sorry, can you turn him off?
How?
All right.
After calling 911, Louise informed Debbie at work, who then alerted Sunil. The parents rushed to Children's Hospital, where Matthew had been taken. Doctors discovered severe swelling in Matthew's brain, necessitating emergency surgery to reduce the pressure. Matthew was placed in a medically induced coma to help him breathe and allow the swelling to subside. However, as doctors examined him more closely, they began to suspect that his injuries weren't accidental. They found bruising on Matthew's brain, as if it had been struck. Even more alarming was a 2.5-inch crack in the back of his skull, an unusual and severe injury for an infant. These injuries appeared to be causing the brain swelling and bruising. Perhaps the most telling sign was the bleeding in Matthew's eyes. Debbie, being an eye doctor herself, immediately recognized this as a symptom of shaken baby syndrome. She concluded that Louise must have violently shaken Matthew, causing these life-threatening injuries. Shaken baby syndrome occurs when an infant is violently shaken, causing the brain to move back and forth inside the skull. This can lead to brain bleeding, bruising, swelling, and eye hemorrhages, exactly what Matthew was experiencing. The hospital staff alerted the police, who came to question Louise about the day's events. Louise told them Matthew had been unusually fussy that morning. She claimed that she had given him a bath at Debbie's request, then gently laid him on the floor, dried him off, dressed him, and placed him in his crib. According to Louise, when she later checked on Matthew, she found him unresponsive. She claimed she picked him up, noticed he had vomited and was barely breathing, and attempted CPR. Louise stated she was too nervous to page Sunil, so she called 911 instead. In her own words, Louise described finding Matthew. He was lying there, his eyes half closed, not focusing. He was gasping for breath. The police noted Louise's emphasis on Matthew being unusually fussy that morning, considering it a possible motive for shaking him. They speculated that Louise might have lost patience with the crying baby, leading leading to a moment of frustrated violence. On February 5th, just one day after the incident, police felt they had sufficient evidence to arrest Louise Woodward and charge her with child abuse. Given that Louise was the only person present when Matthew's injuries occurred, she became the prime suspect. Prosecutors theorized that Louise had shaken Matthew out of frustration over his crying. They also believed the skull fracture resulted from Louise slamming him onto the bathroom floor after his bath. Tragically, on February 9th, 4 days after Louise's arrest, Matthew remained in a coma on life support. The extent of his brain damage made recovery impossible. His family faced the heartbreaking decision to remove life support, and at just 9 months old, Matthew passed away. After Matthew's passing, Louise's charge was upgraded from child abuse to first-degree murder. This development shocked many people who found it hard to believe that Louise, who appeared sweet and innocent, could be responsible for such a heinous act. This case highlights how appearances can be deceiving. Just as some notorious criminals have seemed charming and trustworthy, Louise's pleasant demeanor didn't necessarily reflect her actions or character. Despite the serious charges, Louise had supporters both in England and America. Surprisingly, some even criticized the Eapen family for leaving Matthew in Louise's care. This misplaced blame was particularly cruel, as the parents were still grieving their child's loss and had no reason to suspect their nanny would harm their baby. The trial began on October 7, 1997, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just 8 months after Matthew's death. The trial attracted intense public interest due to its tragic circumstances involving an infant's death and allegations against a seemingly innocent Nanny. Barry Scheck, a well-known lawyer best known for his work on the O.J. Simpson case, led Louise's defense team in claiming that Matthew's injuries were unintentional and might have been a result of a pre-existing condition. They claimed the brain swelling was actually decreasing, suggesting an older injury. A key point in their defense was the lack of an external scalp injury, which they argued was inconsistent with the prosecution's claim that Louise had slammed Matthew down. A neuropathologist supporting the defense also found signs of healing in Matthew's brain, indicating the injury might not have been recent. The defense suggested that Matthew's injury occurred weeks earlier, with Louise possibly causing a minor re-injury unintentionally. They argued that Matthew's unusual fussiness that day could have been a sign of this pre-existing condition flaring up, as brain injuries can affect behavior. However, the prosecution countered that it was implausible for Matthew to have been living normally with such a severe skull fracture. They insisted that Louise inflicted the injuries on the day in question as a result of her frustration with the baby's fussiness. In an unexpected turn of events, Louise decided to testify in her own defense. This move was considered risky by legal experts, as it would allow the prosecution to cross-examine her directly and potentially challenge her account of events. On the stand, she admitted to being less gentle than usual while bathing Matthew due to his fussiness and her rush to get him to sleep. However, she firmly denied any intentional harm. A crucial moment came when Louise acknowledged lightly shaking and tossing Matthew to get his attention when she found him unresponsive. She demonstrated this action to the jury, raising questions about the appropriateness of shaking the baby, even gently. Towards the end of her testimony, a dramatic exchange occurred. Louise's own attorney, visibly emotional, asked her directly if she had slammed Matthew. Unexpectedly, Louise responded with a slight laugh before denying the accusation. She stated, "No, I didn't do anything to hurt Matthew."
Slam Matthew Eapon.
No.
And
No,
did you
I
do
didn't.
anything to her?
This seemingly inappropriate reaction to such a serious question caught the attention of many observers. Some speculated that Louise might have misinterpreted her attorney's tone, but the moment nonetheless left a strong impression on those following the trial. As the trial concluded, both sides presented their closing arguments. In order to prove that Louise couldn't have caused Matthew's injuries because they were so old, the defense emphasized scientific evidence. The prosecution, however, appealed to emotions, stressing that a child had died and Louise was the only person present. On October 30th, 1997, the jury delivered their verdict. 19-year-old Louise Woodward was found guilty of second-degree murder. In Massachusetts, this carried an automatic life sentence with the possibility of parole after 15 years. When the verdict was announced, Louise broke down in the courtroom, crying uncontrollably and asking the jury why they had done this to her, insisting on her innocence. The scene was emotionally charged and deeply affecting distracting for all present. The public's reaction was one of shock and, in many cases, outrage. Many people found it hard to believe that the young woman they perceived as sweet and innocent could be guilty of such a crime. The prospect of a life sentence for a 19-year-old resonated strongly with those who doubted her guilt. While the Eapen family felt some relief at the verdict, believing Matthew had received justice, an unexpected turn of events was about to unfold. The prosecution grew concerned that Judge Hiller Zobel might overturn the conviction, as rumors circulated that he disagreed with the jury's decision. In Massachusetts, judges have the power to overturn convictions they deem unjust, a rare move that Judge Zobel has made twice before. True to these concerns, Judge Zobel did indeed overturn Louise's second-degree murder conviction, citing a lack of evidence. He reduced the charge to involuntary manslaughter, which carries a much lighter sentence ranging from probation to a maximum of 20 years. In a shocking decision, Judge Zobel sentenced Louise to time served, the 9 months she had already spent in jail awaiting trial. He stated his desire to bring this extraordinary matter to a compassionate conclusion, while emphasizing that this decision did not diminish the tragedy of Matthew's death or the Eapen family's grief. Judge Zobel's decision to release Louise after 279 days in jail sparked intense controversy. While some supported the ruling, believing in Louise's innocence, others felt it was too lenient given the gravity of Matthew's death. Debbie and Sunil Eapen were devastated. They struggled with the pain of losing their child while witnessing public support for the person deemed responsible for his death. Adding to their anguish was the misplaced blame some placed on them for hiring Louise. Following her release, Louise was deported to England. In a 1998 BBC interview, she maintained her innocence, a stance she holds to this day. Now 45, Louise has a daughter and leads a quiet life. The Eapens established the Matthew Eapon Foundation to raise awareness about shaken baby syndrome and child abuse prevention. Despite their ongoing grief, this case continues to provoke debate about justice, child safety, and the complexities of the legal system. It raises questions about guilt, appropriate punishment, and how society balances compassion with accountability in tragic cases involving the death of a child. If you were captivated by this case, if you seek the truth behind the headlines, join us in our quest. Subscribe to our channel and be the first to uncover the next chilling tale. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay curious.